Hey everybody, this is Howard Malloy. I shared a few weeks ago a comment that I wanted to introduce people to different leadership concepts and more importantly, people. I've been blessed to know a lot of really cool people who I think are really great leaders, and they all bring various aspects of leadership forward. And so I'm looking to just do 10 to 15 minutes to get you thinking about different aspects of leadership and also see leadership through other people's eyes. Today, we're lucky enough to have Stacey Sargent with us. Stacey, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your background?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Howard. Leadership is my business, if you will. I do leadership and team development. So what does that mean? It means I help design learning programs, development programs, team offsites, executive coaching, speaking. I'm also an author. And for me, it's the passion around helping people develop as human beings. So that is, I'm in the leadership business, so I'm glad to be here. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. I've worked with a large number of clients, Microsoft, Amazon, Expedia, timing. I could go on, I won't do that. You can see that on LinkedIn if you're really that interested. I have an undergraduate degree in business, and then my master's is in applied behavioral science. So that was the foundation of how I came into this work. I used to work in tech. I worked for PeopleSoft and Microsoft, and I wasn't in HR. I was a program manager. I was working with technical people. So this was a complete 180, and I love thinking about the human systems. So that's a little bit about me. I'm located in Seattle, Washington, but do work all over the globe. And I am the mother to a furry creature, a dog named Tallulah.
Ah, nice. We'll have to talk to Tallulah at some point. It's interesting you have the technical background, but then are so deep into people because they talk about technical people and them not being people. And the time I've spent with you, you are the exact opposite, which I find really interesting. What level of person do you typically work with? Is it frontline individual contributors, leaders? Like what level of people are you working with?
I'd say it's usually, it is C-level plus 1, 2, 3 down. So senior director, vice president, C-level. And leaders of leaders, really. How are they trying to get work done through other people?
Got it. And you named a lot of big companies there. As you're working with leaders of leaders, what's been the most important leadership skill in your eyes that have made them successful?
Yeah, I mean, what I encounter repeatedly over 15 years, and this is sort of a personal belief too, is it's what I call inner work. So self-awareness, knowing what makes you tick, knowing what throws you off, knowing what inspires you. Another way to refer to it is emotional intelligence, which is a vast scope of work. And I think most people know the value or believe in emotional intelligence. I think what's difficult is, yeah, emotional intelligence is a great skill, but people are like, but what is it really? And then how do I actually get better at it? It sounds kind of nebulous and a little soft. Like some people say, oh, well, there's no emotions at work. Don't bring your emotions to work. What I know is from having studied it is that emotions actually run about 80% of what we do. Most people don't like that statistic. They'd like it to be more rational driven.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, pretty high. And I'm a logic person too, so I didn't like that number. But when I heard that, my thought was, look, if emotions run that much of what we do, then that's the place I want to learn the most. It's sort of like, for me, my analogy is going to Vegas. If somebody tells me Black 22 is going to win 80% of the time, I'm putting it on Black 22. So why not go as far into learning about emotional intelligence in your inner work as possible to get the biggest leverage? So that's in a nutshell.
When you and I started talking about this, and you talked about, or you brought up the fact you'd maybe talk about emotional intelligence, and you use this term inner work, it did not make sense to me what you were talking about. That little snippet there made everything very clear. So that's helpful. Looking inside as
yeah, it's a very nebulous thing. Like people, what is it? And that's what I hope to sort of, it's what I really love to do in terms of bringing that into clarity for people. So I'm happy to, at some point in our conversation, talk a little bit more about what I think inner work is comprised of.
Yeah, well, can you give examples of inner work and the things that you're doing with people?
Yeah, you bet. So the first one I would say is self-awareness. So in the emotional intelligence theory, you become, the skills are related to relationship management, conflict, teamwork. It's related to empathy, awareness, positive attitude. But the core skill that enables all of those is self-awareness. So another analogy for me for Lord of the Ring fans is it's the one ring to rule them all, self-awareness. So what does that mean? It means being aware of what I'm thinking in the moment, what I'm feeling in the moment, how I'm reacting in the moment, and being aware enough of that to not just go on autopilot and react, but instead to choose my reaction. So an example of this for me might be one of my things in reactive world is to get a little defensive when somebody might disagree or give me feedback that I don't appreciate. And so my normal reaction is to think, well, that's not true, and to have some sort of fear and want to come back and defend. If I'm aware of that, if I have my self-awareness, then I know that's my typical reaction. And I can say, wait, that's not the best response here. I'm going to choose a different response. Yes, I'm reacting. I have a bit of defensiveness, anger, but I can hold on to that and then engage with the person in a different way. So I like to think of it as going from reactive to more intentional or more choiceful about what we do. So I'd say that's the core underlying thing in inner work. It also shows up in, I think of it as defining who we are at our best. What do we really care about? What brings meaning? What are our values? What are our strengths? And what is the most solid self we can be? That's all self-awareness. And then in the other side is what's not at our best. What do we get triggered by? What do we get reactive to? And how do we become as conscious as we can about all of those things so that drives our choices? Sort of like, you might have heard the expression, my emotions have me, and this is, I have my emotions. I don't get hooked by the emotions. I actually get to choose.
Do you have work or activity you do that help people identify their triggers? Because typically, not typically, but I know when I was younger, I would be too far down the path of self-awareness that there's no pulling it back. Like you want to stop talking and you can't. You just keep going, right?
Bring that back in. Bring it back in. Yeah. Well, one of the things is it's all on the learning path, and so you can't just sort of know it and then automatically you're doing it. Learning takes time, as we all know. I'm impatient with my own learning, but the first step is, oh, hey, I do this. And so I would say reflecting back on times that I've been triggered and I responded in a way that wasn't the best way to respond. So you start by looking back and saying, what are the times and the things that trigger me? And what's going on inside my head? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? How did I react? And you sort of study yourself. And that's I don't have this simple trick, this silver bullet. Of course, anything like that is probably a lie anyway. And it's nothing simple in life. But you really study yourself, and it's after the fact, usually, unfortunately, when you start. It's like, oh, why did I say that in that meeting? Okay, I stopped. Why did I say that? What was I thinking? Was I feeling pressed? Was I feeling like I had to prove myself? And as you do that research, it starts to get inside you, and you start to get to the point where you'll actually come present with it. where you're like, oh, okay, this is that moment, and I might still do it. And then the next moment, this is that moment, and then I choose. So it takes a lot of discipline, research, practice. One of the things I've done is I've told a client, carry around some Post-its for a week. And anytime you have that reactive thing go on or get triggered, write down on a Post-it note, what was I thinking? What was I feeling? What sort of caused that trigger? Pull the Post-it note off, put it in the back of your journal. At the end of the week, go through those. You'll probably find a couple of patterns of what really throws you off. I don't know, Howard, I'm curious, you've been a leader for a long time. Do you have an idea of one or two things that tend to be your triggers that you know about yourself?
It's hard to explain, but your comment about self-reflection is how I've been able to recognize it. But I have physical reactions. I can actually feel myself getting tense. I can I can feel the words on the tip of my tongue, like I want to jump in and talk. But knowing that that's happening, I now can sit back and smile, but on the inside, I can put together a proper response and approach to whatever that situation might be. So for me, it's very physical. I got tense, excited. It's those type of things.
And it sounds like you've learned over time what that reaction is and then how to manage it. Do you have a sense of when that happens? Like, are you in meetings with senior leaders, or is it when somebody's pushing back on you? Are there things that really get you more often than other things?
So over time, I've mellowed a lot. I would have had a lot of these back when I was younger. Now, one of the things, like, I'll put a ton of time into planning something that I think is really well thought out, really, really well orchestrated, and the right idea to move the business forward. And you will go to get buy-in, and people simply don't see it. And I know personally, it's probably the way I'm communicating, the words that I'm saying, the way that I'm trying to present my ideas or thoughts. But on the inside, I can feel that, like, my blood is starting to boil. Like, what is wrong with these people? They don't see my brilliant ideas. And it's interesting. I almost detach, right? I have to separate from that. And in my mind, it's like me watching this conversation happen with this person, and that's how I can maintain and keep it on track. But knowing that trigger's coming for me is the key every time.
That's exactly it. That's the key. So you've watched yourself over time. You know, like, particular instances when I'm trying to influence others, bring them along, get them on board with my idea. You've learned what your typical reaction is. I feel it. You might start to push and push more, or get louder and louder, which is not exactly what you want to happen.
I'm already loud enough.
You've learned along the way strategies to manage that. And one of the things is being outside and looking at yourself. I think that's a great thing. You're an observer of yourself. You're a researcher of yourself. So I think you just described inner work. You're really figuring out, when am I not at my best? What kind of impact does that create? Not great. And what can I start doing? And I can prepare for those moments. Oh, this is one of those places where I'm probably going to get triggered. How am I going to manage myself?
Yeah, knowing that you're going into a meeting that is probably going to go that way, you can, before you even have the self-awareness, you know, which is really a powerful tool to walk into a meeting with. It's awesome.
I think so many things are preparation, in really getting that mindset of, and getting in contact with what I'm thinking and feeling beforehand, so you have as much information as you can to respond in the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is really timely as well. When you're in face-to-face meetings, you can judge the way people are moving, their body language and whatnot. Many times in today's world, we're on calls. Not everybody wants to use the camera. Words come out that are potentially not intended the way that you're hearing them. And
Yeah.
I think these tools could be really helpful for a lot of people. So this was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. It's interesting because I think I get hired a lot to do. I call them labels to do. How do we think more strategically, or how do you give feedback and have difficult conversations, and how do we improve communication? So those are the labels of why I get hired. What the work always is underneath is that inner work, that emotional intelligence, because I think there are a few things I could probably list on 4 or 5 bullets that I encounter with leaders that are the repeated issues. I would say having difficult conversations, making tough decisions, just what you said, influencing others and bringing them along, and doing bold, innovative work, like really trying to be bold and think differently. Underneath all of those is inner work, confidence, believing in myself, not going based on fear, not trying to prove myself. So regardless of how people come into when they're working with me and what they're wanting, we always dig underneath and saying, what's going on under there? That's the leverage point. If you do that, if you get it right in here, mindset, heart set, attitude, then it will come out here.
Mind, heart, attitude. I like it.
Yeah.
This was really great, Stacey, and I appreciate your time. If people want to reach out and work with you as a coach or have you come in and help their team, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, the website is www.connectgd, as in growthanddevelopment.com. And my email is Stacey, Stacey, @connectgd.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Stacey Sargent. So it's great to have conversations about this and but be forewarned, I'm going to ask you to get underneath the presenting problem. I'm going to ask you to get underneath it.
I haven't had Stacey as a coach. I have had some people that work with Stacey as coaches, and when she says be prepared, it is a lot of work, but the results are they're tremendous. Like it's helped me a lot, and it is all about internal, like working what's happening in here, right? It's been really powerful for me. So
Thanks.
okay,
Howard.
I will take that information, by the way, and put it at the end of the presentation so that everybody who wants to connect can. And thank you so much for your time, Stacey. Have a great day.
You bet. You too. Thanks, Howard.